Okay, so welcome Alice, and great to have you here.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk about nutrition, and we're going to talk about health. We're going to talk about tapping into your intuition to guide you to make, healthy food choices. Really, you've got a wealth of knowledge, so I'm going to do my best to extract the information that people have got sort of top of their minds. Okay, so how about we start with the word health, because
Right.
it's a word lots of people use, it's a word I like to use.
Mm-hmm.
So how about we start by talking about what do you perceive health to be?
Well, good question, and quite a deep question. I would say that in the past, and my own perception of health is just a state of wellness.
Yeah.
There's no illness that I can think of, there's no disease. I have energy.
Yep.
It's not one-dimensional, so physically I'm well, but also I feel mentally well. I have a spiritual wellness.
Yeah.
It goes beyond what I'm eating, so I'm sleeping well, I can exercise, I feel invigorated, and life is good. And I think it's kind of the bigger picture. It's not just one thing. It fluctuates, so it's not a constant state of feeling balanced. But it changes, and I think that's how we looked at it in the past.
Yeah.
I feel today it's kind of morphed a bit, and so the word wellness has become a bit of a buzzword, and I think these days people aren't necessarily feeling healthy, but they're striving for something, and we have different perceptions of what health is. So health has become wrapped up in this perception of perfection, and so we're now striving to eat perfectly to be healthy, have a perfect weight. Everything has to be in balance all the time. We need to be happy, we need to be healthy, wealthy, and I think it's just a bit overwhelming. And possibly it's causing a lot of stress that in itself is unhealthy. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. So it's kind of like the photoshopped ideal that's never achievable.
Exactly.
And everybody wants to achieve it, thinks they should be.
That's right.
Like you say, should always feel good, should always be happy.
Exactly.
It's sort of putting a judgment on what's good and what's bad.
Very
and
much
feelings
so.
And food and everything.
Very much so. And you've hit on that very early in our conversation. This judgment. So with the health comes almost a morality. So you see, especially around food and nutrition, where people feel that it's almost a competition to be healthy, and also there's a morality about it. So you can't just eat in a certain way. You've got to eat in a very clean way, and anything else isn't worthy of showing anyone on Instagram. And it's almost a bragging and a boasting of, look, I can afford moringa powder. You can't.
I don't even know what moringa powder is.
I can afford chia seeds and free-range chicken and whatever else, and I'm eating clean, therefore I am healthy, therefore, on it goes. Status, very much so.
Yep.
In fact, I wanted to tell you a story. I went to a lecture on Saturday. Excuse me. It was nothing to do with health or nutrition. It was just a ladies' conference, and the female speaker stood up, and she pretty much opened her talk with introducing herself, and then saying, "I try to be healthy. I'm the healthiest I can be. I'm not vegan. I try to be gluten-free, but I'm not quite there. I mean, gluten's in everything." And then she went on. And for most people that would have gone over their heads. But for me as a nutritionist, my ears pricked up, and I heard, why are you equating being vegan and gluten-free with the ultimate health status?
It's interesting,
so,
isn't it?
That's what people are seeing these days, and it's quite sad really, because I think it's distracting from what real health really is.
Yeah, it is. And interesting with the vegan thing, because I'm trying to be vegan, so I mean vegan really it's a moral movement, isn't it?
It really is.
It's a belief system.
It's gone beyond food. And I think
trying to be vegan means I'm trying to care more about animals, maybe. But what she means is diet, I guess.
Diet, I think she meant.
I'm trying to implement a vegan diet.
That's it. I'm trying to.
For health.
She saw that as the ultimate. Expression of having a healthy diet. Being vegan.
Really interesting. Well, we're going to cover the various different. We're going to cover the kind of the current diet fads, I suppose you could call them. So we're going to talk about keto. We're going to talk about veganism. We're going to talk about high carb, low carb, all the different macros and so on. I just wanted to add in there. We were talking about health, and the way I see it sounds very similar to the way you describe it. I see health as, you could replace the word with vitality. You could replace it with energy if that's your bag. Sort of this idea that we're all an expression of nature, and health is a word I like to use to describe that expression. And it's always there, and it's a body and a mind thing, and it's always expressing itself. And the reason we don't always feel it, the reason we don't always experience it, is because we often put lots of obstacles in the way. And that might be psychological noise. It might be lots of thought, lots of day-to-day sort of busyness in the head. But in the same way, it can be food, and it can be food which, lots of sugar that makes a lot of noise and stops you being able to hear your intuition. It could be alcohol. It could be all the different, or it could be other drugs. Prescribed medication as well can interfere with all of that. So I see it as something that's always constantly emerging, no matter what state of health you might consider yourself to be in.
It's there within us.
And always trying to emerge. It just needs the opportunity sometimes to be allowed through. And it doesn't always mean feeling happy, and it doesn't always mean being ripped. Because those people who are like the Photoshop ideal to aim for, they've spent 2 days of fasting, haven't they? Slimmed down so that you can see their abs, and you can see. That's
it, and that's the last 48 hours, and what they've done for the previous 3 months is anything but healthy. And I knew a bodybuilder. I've known quite a few bodybuilders, but this particular one worked alongside me, and he himself admitted, what I'm doing is actually not healthy. It's something that I do to look a certain way.
Body sculpting is different than health.
That's right, exactly. And we spoke about this lady, Maddie Moon, who is a really inspirational speaker and writer. And she used to be a female fitness competitor. And she talks about her journey of being so obsessed with looking a certain way. Her trainer didn't help because he was very much into, or pinching her bum, so a bit too much, flesh or whatever. And really kind of obsessing over her food, her workouts. And what happened to her was she became orthorexic. I don't know if you know that term, but so we'll talk about it later, but it's a term that basically means it's like an obsession with healthy eating. So she became orthorexic. She was very blinkered and narrow-minded, but she was in a place where her health was suffering to look a certain way. And at some point, luckily, she woke up and said, no, enough is enough. I'm a normal woman, and I'd rather have my menstrual cycle. I'd rather have some body fat. I'd rather not have all this anxiety. I'd rather not worry about how many calories in a blueberry, and she just wants to be normal. And now she's mentoring other people and showing them that this ripped physique that we all aspire to, which we call health, is anything but healthy.
It's great. It's an important message, isn't it? Because people don't realise,
especially for the younger generation.
And would you say something I talk a lot about intuition and being able to kind of hear your intuition, and to me that's hearing what your body is what your body needs, really, food-wise. But I'm also aware there's another movement or sort of diet or fad that's called intuitive eating. So that's another thing. I don't know. Do you see that as another diet?
Some people are using it as another diet. And you'll see on the internet, will intuitive eating help me lose weight? And people are using. Intuitive eating didn't start off as a diet. It started off as a movement to help to break that diet cycle and free people, especially women, from that restrictive mindset. So the idea was let's not follow these very prescriptive meal plans that you see, breakfast, snack, lunch, dinner. So let's break free from that and listen to what your body wants. And initially you would be eating whatever you needed, whatever you fancied, whenever you needed it, in whatever quantities you needed it. So that was the idea. And for some women it meant they were overeating initially, but try not to put any judgment on that overeating. and just to kind of go with the flow until things settle down. It's a bit like when you're on holiday and you take the reins off your diet, whatever diet you happen to follow regularly, and there's the all-you-can-eat buffet for 2 weeks, and you go mad because you've given yourself permission. But at the end of it, actually, you know what? I'm just ready for my green smoothie again, you know, because you've got to that point where you've exhausted that freedom, and now you've found what you actually want to do. So that's the idea behind intuitive eating. That you let go of the reins for a bit, you forget the rules. But some people were using it as if I eat till I'm full and then don't eat again till I'm hungry, will I lose weight? It's not really about the weight.
So people are looking for prescription so much of the time, aren't they?
Always. It's almost like they need rules all the time. You know.
Because they don't know how to trust themselves. They don't know how to find the answers within themselves.
That's it. And we've moved away from
over that agency.
That's it. And we've moved away from the cultures where things were just handed down generation by generation. You know, now it's not so much like that. Because the parents now aren't really handing down healthy eating habits to their children. So it's a very difficult place to be. We're now looking for guidelines and rules from outside.
And we get them, don't we? We get them from the government. We get them from all sorts of places that are pretty out of date and inaccurate and unhelpful.
That's it. It's the latest campaign, is it? 200 calorie snacks, 100 calorie snacks, 2 a day max.
Is it?
That's the campaign.
So they want people to count their calories.
Count the calories, and you know, kids are having, you know, you can imagine telling my daughter, you know, 2 a day max, 100 calorie snacks, you know. Laugh in my face.
So how many calories in a bag of Haribo?
Who knows?
Big bag.
Not sugar.
There's definitely a headache in there.
Exactly. That's right.
So let's start with some different diets. I mean, do you want to take your pick? Which one you'd like to start with?
Let's start with veganism.
Yeah,
We've mentioned it.
Okay.
We've mentioned it. So it's not necessarily a diet for some people. It's a lifestyle, a way of life. And it can be born out of that ethical place of it's not right to be eating animals. Or using animals in any way. So some vegans won't even wear animal hide or leather. They won't eat honey because bees are obviously involved in making honey. So you know, it can go quite deep for some people. For others, it's a way of eating that it espouses health. It's taking me away from anything that I can see to be unhealthy, and it's pushing me towards a good way of eating that I can feel good about myself. And for some people, that's, you know, I go along with that. Lots of fruit, lots of vegetables, whole grains. It can be a very good diet. For others, it can be a way of exercising their want to restrict. So some people just want to restrict foods, and veganism gives them a legitimate diet to do that. So now they're not having any dairy. They're not having, some of them will cut out even other things that aren't even vegan related, but no gluten, no sugar, because that's quite fashionable as well, which essentially leaves them eating very much just plants, just, you know, vegetables and fruit and not a lot else. So from that point of view, it can be quite unhealthy. For others, it can become a convenient diet, but also in terms of they're going into the supermarket and just grabbing convenience foods that are vegan and not necessarily very healthy. So the vegan burgers, the pretend sausages, the cheating bacon, that kind of thing. So that's also
highly processed.
Exactly, highly processed. So that's the downside that you're also seeing now. And the supermarkets are really tapping into the whole vegan movement and bringing these things out.
There's a couple of things you said that I want to pick up on.
Sure.
Let's go back because my memory might just go. But regarding the junk food, or the processed food, the junk food, I think you're right. There are lots of people who say, "Oh, well, I'm a vegan," and there are lots of articles, aren't there? Oh, man goes vegan for X number of years and he's in worse health. Doctor says he's in worse health than he was. Well, you've got no idea what he ate. He could have just been eating junk food the whole time. Could have been eating anything.
Can I flip that? Because also what you see is man goes vegan or woman goes vegan for 6 years, hasn't had a cold, now has no arthritis, has lost X amount of pounds. But again, what were they eating beforehand? You know, what were their diet before?
Absolutely.
We've got no idea. And also, you've got to remember, somebody who decides to be vegan invariably or typically will say, right, I'm now vegan, I'm taking care of what I eat, I'm taking care of my body, I'm now going to start exercising, I might give up smoking.
Totally.
You know, I'm sleeping more.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at their health altogether. But what happens is that one thing, the veganism, is now supposedly the answer to why they're feeling so much better.
Yeah. I would call it more of a lever.
Exactly. That's right.
A thing that they enjoyed doing,
Yes.
a thing that they found was quite easy and enjoyable.
Exactly.
And they used that to leverage other areas of their health,
That's
like
right.
to do more movement and
That's
things.
right. And that's the case for, I think, all of these fad diets, not just veganism.
Yeah.
All of these movements, it's not just about the food. People typically, when they change their diet, they change other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's this kind of reductionist thing. It's like, okay, so what's the one thing that caused, do Italians live longer because they eat olive oil?
Yeah, exactly, or drink red wine.
Yeah, or drink red wine, so then red wine means that I'll live longer.
That's right.
And it's never about that, it's out
not.
of context, it doesn't mean anything.
And that's lovely actually, because the French paradox.
Yeah.
So are you familiar with the French paradox?
About the health side of things, yeah.
So apparently they eat lots of cheese and they have butter and white bread and drink wine, but they have this really sort of long life that's very healthy and much better than us apparently.
Yeah.
But so everyone says it's the diet and they call it the French paradox. But they also have a different pace of life. They go to work.
Yeah.
Typically back in the past, this is how they worked. They went to work, they came home, they all sat round and had lunch. Some cultures and some Mediterranean cultures, the kids come home, the parents come home at lunchtime, sit around the table and have a family meal. They probably don't stare at their phones, they communicate, they share a home-cooked meal, digest it, go back to work. Some cultures even have a siesta.
It's dying out of it, isn't it?
Exactly, it's dying out. But there's a whole sort of balance around eating and being with family and preparing food. And it's not just about what you're eating, but how you're eating. And I think the how you're eating is potentially more important.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. It's been lovingly prepared. And you were probably present while it was lovingly prepared by somebody you love, and you sat down and ate it together.
That's right. That's it.
It had more meaning.
meaning.
You made more meaning of the meal.
And you probably felt full, or listened to your cues that said, I'm full now, rather than staring at a computer screen, downing a sandwich and a packet of crisps, Coke, at your desk, and actually not even realise that you've eaten until the indigestion kicks in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very different picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
You touched on restricting diet. So you said earlier about somebody using veganism as an excuse to restrict diet. Now, why would somebody want to restrict their diet in that? Why would they be looking for an excuse to restrict their diet?
It's become very fashionable these days to eliminate certain things from your diet in pursuit of health, in pursuit of perfect health.
Yeah.
So we're told now that dairy products, gluten, sugar, caffeine, and the list goes on. There's something wrong with all of these things. So rather than finding some balance and having less of them, or finding a way that they can work in your diet, the answer really is to eliminate them, cut them out altogether. So rather than looking a bit odd, people will say, oh, I'm vegan, I'm paleo, I'm whatever, and therefore that gives them a legitimate reason not to eat these foods. And it looks good, and they like to talk about it a lot, and it gives them a bit of status. And that's pretty much how it is now for many people. But what's happening, as we've spoken about many times, is restriction actually causes a lot of stress for people. It's very unsociable. And when you restrict foods, all you can think about is that food that you've decided you're not allowed to have. And then you can create a cycle. It's a bit like people when they're trying to lose weight, where they say, I'm not going to have any donuts, sugar, crisps, whatever, and all they can think about is donuts, sugar and crisps. They're eating their restricted diet, and then what happens is they finally give in, because there's only so long you can go without the foods that you want. And then you end up having a donut and feeling so bad about it that you eat all of the donuts, all of the crisps, all of the sugar, until Monday rolls around again, you start again. So you can find yourself in that cycle, not for weight loss reasons, but also just because you're restricting food.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's like you're restricting something, but you actually want it. So you're depriving yourself of something. I mean, for me, I've restricted lots of things in my life, and alcohol being a big one. I haven't had alcohol for years, and for me, it was very easy to do in the end, and I never felt like I was depriving myself because I was at a point in my life where it became too much of a feature in my life, and I made the conscious decision. I would rather go without it because of the impact it's having on my life, and so I never felt deprived. So it was never difficult in that sense.
Exactly.
I never I rarely sit in a pub anyway these days, but I wouldn't be sitting in a pub looking at people drinking thinking, oh, I wish I could just have some of that beer. I'd just be quite happy, enjoying the experience and exploring the new experience.
That's right. And I think if you give yourself permission as well, to have whatever you want. So if you wanted that beer,
of course I'd have it.
Then the permission's there, and therefore that takes away that sort of diet police or whatever, or someone saying, thou shalt not have.
How am I going to tell it? What am I going to say when I've told everyone I don't drink and then I go and have a drink?
Exactly. Whereas if it's very much your choice, then you can make that choice. And it's no big deal.
You're autonomous.
Exactly. I think that's, again, we spoke about intuitive eating. The thinking behind intuitive eating, very much, if you want it, you can have it. And invariably, you're not going to want it because it's there and you can have it whenever you want it. Doesn't matter. It loses its kind of appeal, doesn't it?
It does, Well, likewise, with foods, the more in tune you become with your body, the more you notice that, okay, I ate that and I felt terrible.
Exactly.
And I noticed such an unpleasant feeling from a reaction from my body when I eat that thing. Like, mentioned a bag of Haribos, it's a great example. I feel terrible after I binge on a bag of Haribos.
Or my bag of nuts that I had over Christmas that I told you about.
You said about
salted caramel nuts that gave me an IBS attack for 3 days.
You're probably not going to have them again in a hurry.
I haven't had them since.
No. Exactly. But you don't feel deprived. You don't sit there dreaming about these caramel nuts.
No, and I know that next time I do have them, I'll probably just have a handful and not a bag of them.
Yeah. We've got Haribo in the cupboard because a friend brought them for the kids, and I'm not tempted.
No.
Because I don't want the headache.
Exactly.
I don't want to feel like that.
That's right.
So then you're not depriving yourself.
Exactly.
And quickly before we move on, you also mentioning about restricting diets.
Yes.
Is it a good idea at this point to touch on eating disorders and that kind of thing, and how restricting our diets or adopting a certain diet might be almost an excuse or making it fashionable?
I mentioned orthorexia. So it's a term coined by a physician called Stephen Bratman, and he was actually like a naturopath, I guess, a very well-versed person in the world of natural health, and he was seeing patients and clients, and he was himself trying to eat a very clean diet and live a very clean way of life, and he had his own guru who he looked up to, as many people do in this world. It's all very much, who I'm following on Instagram and Facebook. So he had his own guru, and he had expectations of his guru, and he went out for a meal with this guy that he had on a pedestal, and he was absolutely shocked when he saw the guy eating all of his meal, not sort of eating till he was 3/4 full or whatever, and following up with some ice cream. And it kind of opened his eyes and, just made him think, what am I doing here? What's going on? And he realised that he wasn't in a balanced place, and started to really explore what happens when you try to restrict to be super healthy. And so anyway, his first book, Health Food Junkies, is really worth reading if you're interested in this subject. And it's evolved from then. He wrote this book back in, I think, the 90s, but it's evolved, and what we're seeing now is almost a new wave of eating disorders, of the old school bulimia and anorexia. It still exists and it's still there, but what's happening now, there's a nuance happening where people are trying to be very, very healthy, but scared to eat certain foods. So there's no relaxation around food. People will turn down social occasions and rather not go to parties and things, or they'll turn up with their Tupperware because they've got their own food prepared. They'll turn down invitations. Maddie Moon talks about not dating, seeing somebody she really wants to go out on a date with, or going on the date and stressing about what's on the menu, or looking the menu up before she got to the restaurant, and then disappearing off in the loo to drink her protein shake because she hadn't counted her macros properly for the day, and then running back and joining her date.
It's very stressful.
So it becomes a very stressful disorder, all tied around food. you're planning your meals, you're planning what you're going to eat and what you're not going to eat.
Yeah.
And as soon as you eat something off plan, it derails you, and that can lead to a major binge, spiralling out of control, and it just becomes all consuming, and it's completely wrong.
Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I guess young people are looking at Instagram.
Yeah.
And look at me in my bikini, not me, don't look at me in my bikini. Here's me in my bikini, I look amazing, I'm, take your pick, fad diet, and then these are the foods I'm eating, so then they might copy them.
That's right.
But they don't see behind the scenes.
They don't see behind the scenes. And it's what's happening now as well is you have, as I mentioned, these gurus. So the gurus are there, and what they're doing is promoting their particular style of eating, clean eating, paleo, whatever else. Yeah. And if they've got Instagram posts or blogs, or some have written books, and it's very visual. We're very visual these days, aren't we? So it's very visual, so they're all very beautiful, very airbrushed. The clean eating movement, I mean, there's been a backlash recently, thank goodness, and that's because it was fronted by very beautiful people who have no nutritional qualifications, who just say, look at me, if you eat like me, you'll also have glossy hair, shiny, clean skin, no pimples, a beautiful figure, and that was very much the visual side of clean eating. So people were kind of trying to aspire to that.
Okay.
Another diet.
Let's move on to. So should we move on to ketogenic?
We can move on to ketogenic.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. Before we do, let's just identify, because I appreciate lots of people who are watching might have no idea at all about food. It might be a whole new subject. So let's talk about this idea of macros. Where, as I understand it, food itself is divided up into three main categories, right?
Yes. So you've got your carbohydrates, your fat, and your protein. So they all perform different roles within the body. And foods fall into it's not clear cut, but they fall into one of these categories. Some foods cross over. So some grains will have some proteins, but they'll also be carbohydrate, maybe a tiny bit of fat. But primarily they're going to be carbohydrates. So people understand that these foods have different roles within the body, and by manipulating the ratio of these foods, you can change the way you feel and look. So that's what's happening now. People are looking and saying, well, if I cut all my carbohydrates and up my fats and proteins, I can achieve this. Or if I have this much carbohydrate, I can achieve this. So I think people are trying to sort of mess around with what they're eating and change the way they're feeling and looking.
And where does nutrition fit into that?
So this is breaking it down even further. So you have your micronutrients. So you have your vitamins, your minerals, your cofactors. You have your phytonutrients, which are your plant nutrients that come from fruits and vegetables mainly. So what's happened within the nutrition world is people start to pick out things, so flavonoids, antioxidants, they sort of start to pick out the sort of micro bits that are there. And
you need more of that tiny little one thing.
And major on them. Whereas, the old adage of a balanced diet, whatever that means, but it's kind of gone out the window now. But there is a place for just bringing back a bit of everything. And making sure that you're incorporating lots of things into your diet. And just because blueberries are good for you, you don't have to just have blueberries or blueberry powder or blueberry whatever else. It's okay to have some blueberries some day and some raspberries another, or some apples or whatever. You don't have to major on the superfoods. Kale is a superfood, but so is broccoli, so is cauliflower. Maybe not as sexy, but you can eat those things and still get good benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. As humans, we're resilient, we're adaptable.
We are.
And we thrive on adapting.
We do.
So
and
to
variety.
Eat variety, So to eat the same food every single day doesn't make sense when we thrive and we're built to adapt. So throw in something different, throw in something that challenges the body or something new, a new experience then.
And even challenging the body sometimes with a donut isn't the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want that donut.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. It messes with your blood sugar levels, but your body can
helps you to adapt.
Cope, and adapt.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
right. And that's why our body. That's why we are so resilient.
Yeah.
Because if you ate that donut every day and that's all you ate, you're going to get yourself in a pretty old mess. But if you are eating a great, balanced, phytonutrient rich, or good diet with lots of different things in, that one donut is neither here nor there.
Yeah. That reminds me, the old me. The picture used to be whatever for breakfast. If I was rushing out the door, it'd be like porridge. Otherwise, it would be a grilled English style breakfast. But then straight after that, I wouldn't feel full, so I'd carry on. I'd have coffee and I'd have cakes, and maybe I'd be commuting to London, or if I was in the car or the train, definitely coffee in hand, go and buy a croissant or a couple of cakes, and that would carry on until lunchtime. And then it's white bread, and it just kind of goes out the window. The reason I mention it is that I don't have those cakes anymore. That's something that I consciously stopped doing.
Yes.
And very recently we went to visit some friends up in Liverpool, so it was a fair old drive, and we were driving back around about that time in the morning, and I just thought, I just feel like a coffee and a cake, and we walked past a cake shop, and it were these lovely artisan cakes. So I bought 2 for myself for the journey, and I ate them, and I enjoyed them in the moment, but very, very quickly my body went, oh, that was just not a good idea.
Not a good thing to do.
And so I had the experience of enjoying it, and then the experience of my body having to adapt and having to cope with that kind of onslaught, really.
But you see, one cake might have been alright.
I might have got away with one, I just went for 2.
Yeah. But then it's listening to your body, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But then by the end of the journey, I was back, I'd adapted, I'd self-regulated.
That's right. And that's really important, because what you did as well, you listened to your body and how you felt.
Yeah.
And some people, when they get to that place of, I've eaten those 2 cakes and now I feel lousy.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm now going to just continue eating the cakes.
I've blown my diet.
Blown it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep eating those cakes. I'm going to go back, buy some more, and eat cakes all night and into tomorrow.
The thought went through my head.
Yeah, I bet it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know what? Come Monday, we'll detox.
Yeah. It went through my head, What else can I have tonight since I've broken the...
As I'm already feeling rubbish, what else can I... Yeah, I think to some degree that's within us all. Yeah?
I think so. Yeah.
I think so.
What is it?
Right, so now that we've established what carbohydrates are, we can talk about keto.
Yeah.
So ketogenic diet it's been around for ages, and it's been used therapeutically for quite a few ailments, but mainly for epilepsy in children. It's been shown to change the way their brain works and actually halt a certain kind of epilepsy. So it's a very therapeutic diet. More recently, it's become a very fashionable diet because it's a very efficient way to lose weight very quickly, to lose body fat. So the idea behind it is that you restrict your carbohydrates very much, down to, I think it's something around 20 grams a day, which isn't a lot. It's not even, a banana.
Not even a banana.
It's very low.
Yeah.
And to compensate for that, you increase your fat. So your protein stays relatively low, which is quite different to some of the other diets out there that are low carb, where you increase your protein. So a diet your protein stays relatively low, and your fat goes up. So essentially it looks like you're eating, I don't know, a fashionable way of doing it is bacon and eggs and avocados and olives and oil and coconut oil and butter.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and meat, lots of meat.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way that a ketogenic diet looks for some people.
Yeah. But not chicken really, is it?
Yeah, people eat chicken, but not huge amounts, because obviously it's protein.
Yeah.
It's not very fatty unless you have the skin. Or you eat chicken, you put butter on top.
Right.
So that's what people are doing. The vegetables, they're there, but in very small quantities.
Yeah.
So small amounts of green vegetables. There's a movement called LCHF, which is low carb, high fat, which is slightly different to ketogenic. The idea is that you lower your carbs and increase your healthy fats. And what happens typically is these diets kind of morph into each other.
Okay.
That's kind of as a result of lots of people writing on the internet. Anyone can get up and start a blog or whatever. So things get a bit confused. So LCHF, if you Google LCHF, it takes you into the keto world. But they weren't necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
So LCHF was, the idea there was that you're, as I said, lowering your carbohydrates, increasing your fats, but it was a healthier model.
Yeah.
So you had less, you had less carbohydrates, and you had more quality foods. Yeah. So, as I said, they've morphed. So with ketogenic diet, what happens is your body now stops running on carbohydrates. So typically you eat carbohydrates, it creates glucose in your blood sugar, which then gives you energy. Yeah, so that's the idea behind having carbohydrates typically. But when you cut your carbohydrates, your body still needs an energy source. So there's a chemical conversion. You now start working on ketone bodies initially, and then you'll start to burn your fat for energy. It's a process. It doesn't happen immediately, and during that process, when your body's switching from burning sugar to burning fats, they call it fat adaptation, but you can feel pretty rough. They call it keto flu, and you can feel quite rough. Your energy levels can slump. You feel like you're kind of wading through treacle. It's not a nice place to be. But people come out the other end, and then they start to feel almost invigorated. They get like a new lease of energy, and you feel great. And then people will do that for a while, and then for some people it's great and it works. For other people it doesn't, because we're all so different and individual. So some people really can't function like this, and they slump and they become quite unhealthy. And it can affect things like digestive health, hormonal health, all sorts. So for some people it isn't the answer. And then for some people they start to crave carbohydrates, start to binge wildly, and the rebound effect of a keto diet is quite horrendous as well. So people can get fatter, bigger, more ill than they were before they even started the ketogenic diet.
So it's quite extreme.
It's quite extreme. There's nothing subtle. Nothing subtle about it at all.
And it's quite an extreme regime that you have to follow. In order to get into ketogenesis. And
it's a bit of an all or nothing, which is very fashionable again these days. It's like you can't just be, you can't just cut sugar a little bit. You've got to be sugar free. You can't just cut back on dairy. You've got to be dairy free. It's the all or nothing approach, and I think that's what draws people into something like the ketogenic diet.
So some people are so overweight that they're just desperate.
And it's effective. You will lose weight if you do it.
So it works that respect. But then we come back to this whole thing of, like you said, about binging on carbs, because you're depriving yourself of something. And psychologically, how long can you hold on to that for with your willpower?
Well, this is the thing, you see, because there's an adage that goes around. There's a few things that go around. First of all, people say we have zero need for carbohydrates in the diet. Okay, the body can function perfectly well without carbohydrates. So people hear that and think, right, scientists are saying that. Secondly, there's a big anti-sugar movement. Sugar is carbohydrate, essentially. So there's a big anti-sugar movement, and people are saying that if you have sugar/carbs, you become addictive. Sugar is as addictive as cocaine. You shouldn't be having sugar, blah, blah, blah. And on it goes. Well, sugar and carbohydrates, they do raise certain chemicals in your body. You feel good when you have a surge of dopamine or serotonin. You could go for a run and have the same surge. You can fall in love, have sex, have the same surge. You can have a little bit of chocolate, listen to your favourite music, have that same surge. It's not a bad thing. It's normal, it's physiology. It's about getting that balance.
It's the thing that drives us.
It's the thing that drives us. When you deprive yourself of carbohydrates, you deprive yourself of that creation of serotonin that gives you that calm feeling. A lot of people who go low carb, they actually can't sleep properly at night because they feel wired all the time. I don't know about you, but if you some people feel that at lunchtime if they have a sandwich or a heavy carb meal, all they want to do is sleep all afternoon.
When I used to work in offices, definitely that was how I felt.
You get the afternoon slump for a bit.
Not so much anymore.
Okay, so that's quite common. But so rather than saying, right, I'm now going to go keto or not have carbs, why not switch it a bit and have your carbs later on in the day when you're ready to relax and and chill out.
Right.
And actually what's really nice is recently there was a study that backs up that way of thinking. I think Michael Mosley on BBC spoke about it, and he said, well, actually we're now seeing that carbohydrates in the evening have some benefits for many people. Don't make you put on weight. Why would they? And they relax you and help you to sleep, and changes your body chemistry in a positive way. Some people. So switch it around. See what works for you, rather than just listening to whatever mantra is out there.
That's really interesting. I've not thought of it that way before. So kind of you might feel tired after your carbs. Have them at a time when you'd like to feel tired.
Feeling tired is appropriate.
When it makes sense.
Exactly. That's right. I personally couldn't do that, my carbs in the evening.
Okay.
I'm not a big carb monster, but I just like a bit of balance. And I'd like something with some carbohydrate in the evening. We do. We generally have a curry in the evening, so it's with rice. Exactly. No harm. No, feel good for it.
Or even sometimes like with sweet potato curry or lentil curry, it's even more higher carbs, isn't it?
That's right. And there's nothing wrong with feeling satisfied after you've eaten. And a lot of these diets, they don't make you feel satisfied. Actually, having said that, that's one of the appeals of the keto diet, is that actually you don't get hungry. Because all of that fat and all of that protein just blunts the appetite completely. And that's very much a selling point for many people.
That's something I've utilised is upping my fats too. That's how I dealt with this cake issue that I had.
That's right.
I just upped my fats in the morning and I wasn't hungry.
And actually moving away from the government advice of having a very low fat diet is a good thing.
That's out of date, right?
Outdated.
It's wrong.
It's completely
to
wrong.
say that fats are bad.
Completely wrong.
And people need to know that, because people are still getting confused.
That's right.
And I haven't had a chance to do it, but I was watching Dragon's Den recently, so I like to watch that. And Tej Lalvani, who is he's the dragon who represents health. He's the guy who has the supplement brand, and he's supposed to be he is a tycoon, ambassador for health. Somebody presented some, I think they were freeze-dried fruit and vegetable crisps. And the first thing Tej Lalvani did is he looked on the back, and everyone was saying how great they tasted, and he looked on the back and he felt them, and he said, I don't think these are healthy at all. He said, I can feel oil on my hands. And looking at the fat content, he said, there's a high fat content in this. That's not healthy. And find that somebody would say something like that, but nobody picked it up. And the guy was trying to present his business, and he didn't feel like he wanted to challenge the guy. So he said something about, it's healthy fats, but he kind of left it there. But what happened then was a mainstream program goes out into the masses with a health ambassador telling the world that a bit fat's bad. You don't want to have fat, it's unhealthy. And that's the wrong message.
It's completely the wrong message. Out of date. And it's so outdated. Weight Watchers, I don't know if they still do points, but back in the time, a close relative of mine has spent much of her life on Weight Watchers, so I'm always kind of seeing what's going on there. But at one point they were doing points.
Right.
And so you stayed within your point limit.
Okay.
And the high point foods you tend to avoid or have very infrequently. And the really sad thing was I think they calculated the points based on fat grams per 100 grams. So the high fat, so the high point foods would be things like mackerel, nuts, avocado, seeds, all the really good foods that give you what we know are essential fatty acids. Not sort of optional fatty acids, but essential fatty acids that your body actually requires to function properly. So it's a shame these things are shunned.
So they're basically shaming people when they're eating things that are actually essential and necessary.
Exactly.
It's a very unhealthy approach.
And even this 100-calorie snack thing. I mean, a handful of Brazil nuts and an apple would definitely exceed your 100-calorie snacks.
Absolutely.
That's a great snack.
Nuts are very high fat.
High fat, and therefore and high calorie. But they probably prefer you had a couple of dry crisp bread with a bit of low fat spread possibly on as your 100-calorie snack. Right.
So that's saying don't eat something natural like nuts, which we know are very good for you. Eat something that's processed with something processed on top. That's got no fats. It's basically just nothing food, isn't it?
Exactly. I know
Makes
that,
no sense at all.
I shop in Marks and Spencer's quite often, and they go through phases, often in the new year, of bringing out like new healthy things, supposedly healthy things. And at the moment they have these snack packs, and they're just processed stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, it says on the front 98 calories per bag, so you feel great. I can have that because it's only 98 calories. Of what? Of powder, of stuff just thrown together.
Yeah.
You know, it's like chickpea powder with a bit of herb and a bit of this and a bit of chemical and a bit of, you know, and some snack comes out and you think, what's the point? You could have actually had a banana.
Yeah.
But I know banana's got sugar and carbs.
Yeah, it's interesting with the calorie counting, isn't it? I've seen it in Wetherspoons in the UK, those pubs.
They started.
Don't go in there often, but we went in for breakfast recently, and I noticed on the menu everything is listed calories.
Right.
Every meal.
Yeah, so people are now judging what they're eating solely on the calorie count and not on the nutritional value of the food. Yeah.
I'd suggest probably a lot of the people that are eating there are doing something similar to Weight Watchers, and they're okay. Well, I'm allowed that. Let's go there, and it might even attract those people. Then, you know. Exactly,
and just touching on the calorie thing, we spoke about this before about whether it's as simple as calories in, calories out.
Yeah. And the thermodynamics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to you that it's so much more nuanced than that. It's quite complicated.
Yeah.
And for some people that does seem to work. And if you're in a relatively good state of health already, then chances are that is going to work for you.
Yeah.
You know, you move more, you do some physical exercise, and you reduce your calories.
Yeah.
And so that's probably going to work for you in terms of weight loss.
Yeah.
But for someone who's more unhealthy, there's so much more to it. There might be inflammation in the body.
Yeah.
There could be digestive issues, constipation. There's a whole area of science now looking at the microflora in the gut, what's happening there, whether they call it the gut microbiome. It's had different names over the year, bowel flora, whatever else. But whatever this bacteria is doing, whether we've got the right balance of certain gut bacteria or friendly flora, this all impacts on how we metabolize our food.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's even studies showing that if you take the bowel tissue or microflora from an obese mouse and put it into an underweight mouse, then the underweight mouse actually then starts to get the tendencies of the obese mouse and starts to put on weight.
Really?
Yeah. So you can see that actually it's not quite as straightforward as what you're eating.
No.
It goes much more deep than that.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of things that influence us, even stress and sleep.
Of course,
and, you know, all these things can influence how we hold our weight.
Yeah.
Cortisol. Okay, so that's the stress hormone. Exactly, the stress hormone that is elevated at times of stress, and also when we're not sleeping. Yeah, and that's been linked.
I know about that one.
You know about that? That's been linked to. I know about not sleeping. An increase in belly fat. Yeah. So there's so many factors outside of calories in, calories out that it's quite a complex area.
Lots of new parents. I mean, looking at men. I mean, women's bodies go through massive changes anyway as new parents. Looking at men who didn't give birth to the baby. So often, and myself included, new parents they put on a lot of weight, a lot of body fat, and it's not just to do with the diet. It's to do with, like you said, not sleeping, the stress, all of those things come into it. Yeah, lifestyle.
Right. There's so much. Lifestyle is a huge factor.
But of course, why wouldn't it? I mean, we're talking about the holistic nature of being human.
That's right.
So why wouldn't all those factors play into it? You know, that's how we are. We're integrated.
That's right. We're not one-dimensional.
No. And you can't just take one element and say,
exactly.
well, that's the cause of it.
That's right. And I think that's what's happened with diet and nutrition these days. People feel that, as a nutritional therapist, I very much believe in the power of diet and food.
Yeah.
But that's kind of gone a little bit too far. Yeah. And I think people are almost behaving as if diet and food is the answer to everything now. And you can pretty much cure your life, doesn't matter what ailment it is or what's going on, you can pretty much cure it by manipulating your diet. Yeah. And actually that's probably not that true.
Okay. But would you say that we touched a bit on the French situation? Would you say that the way that you perceive the food you're eating and the way you actually eat it, what's going on in your head, in your mind while you're eating it, and the experience of actually eating, would you say that has a big impact on the impact of the food?
Very much so.
On the body?
Very much so. There's even a school of thought that the way you assimilate your nutrients is very much dependent on your mental state.
Yeah.
So if you're very anxious and agitated generally, but especially about what you're eating, then you're not actually going to assimilate those nutrients as well as if you're in a calm place. And that goes for, even if you're eating a diet that isn't that good, or if you have a food that isn't that good for you, if you can eat it in a calm state, it will influence your body in a much more positive way than if you have this kind of anxious and stressed out approach to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's really great. I'm conscious we're running out of time, but we haven't touched on all diets. We don't need to cover them all. A couple that pop into my mind, and I think we'll be able to knock them off quickly because we've covered the basics. So, paleo diet.
Okay, so paleo, the idea there is that we're eating how our ancestors ate.
Yeah.
So the thought is that it's relatively recently in human evolution that we started, the agricultural revolution happened. So we started eating grains and cultivating grains for food.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you eliminate all grains, but also dairy.
Yeah.
That's not something that supposedly featured in our ancestral past. Legumes.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. So what you're left with is fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, meat.
And meat.
Yeah, and fish. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your diet is based around that. Now, with paleo, like all of the diets out there, there are some positives in that now you're focusing on what you're eating for a start, which is sometimes a good thing for many people, but also you're eating fresh produce. Yeah. So, and hopefully less processed things.
Yeah.
Although the food manufacturers have jumped onto the paleo bandwagon.
Of course, I've seen it. Yeah.
But if you can avoid the paleo nonsense and the paleo desserts and the almond flour cookies and all that kind of stuff, then essentially it could actually be a healthy diet.
Yeah.
For some people. There's a restriction factor. You've got to be careful. If you're finding that you're craving and struggling with the restriction, then it's probably not for you.
Yeah.
Also, for some people, a bit of dairy, there's nothing wrong with that. They can tolerate dairy products.
Yeah.
And dairy products actually do have some good nutritional value.
Of course,
So for many people, dairy isn't an issue. Some people can't tolerate pulses very well.
Yeah.
So it might be something that they're quite happy to leave out. But for other people, pulses are a really good, healthy food.
Yeah.
And, we know that if you look back over what people did eat in the past, we don't actually know that they never ate pulses or grains, because there are many historical evidence, as it were. There's lots of historical evidence that people did eat grains. Yeah. And nuts and seeds and pulses and all sorts. So, it's questionable as to what people did eat in the past.
We don't know for sure.
We just don't know.
It makes sense to me. I love this idea that was suggested in the book *Sapiens*, that during the agricultural revolution, it was humans that were domesticated by wheat.
Right.
So because if you think about it, wheat was like a wild plant at some point, and then suddenly humans came along and watered it, kept the insects away, built houses around it to protect it. So I love that idea.
Yes.
It's a really
That's
great
a nice idea.
idea.
I've not heard that one.
And I think the paleo approach takes into account the fact that suddenly we had available these massive dense packets of carbs.
Yeah.
And so it's suggesting that we didn't used to have such. It wasn't so available before, and now it is.
I think it's just taking that step too far. If we have grains, we have wheat, and we can eat those things more in their natural state.
Yeah.
I personally think it's the processing of these and the mass processing, the mass marketing, where you start to get all this sort of, not real food.
Yeah.
I think that's more of the issue than just having some rice.
Yeah. If we're talking about the care and love that goes into food, back in the days when people used to hand grind flour, for example, the care and love and attention that went into that, not forgetting the movement that went into it, the physical work that went into it as well. So the person doing it was moving
Yes.
naturally as a part of their day.
That's right.
There was love, care and attention that's gone into
that.
preparing that flour,
Yeah.
and then that flour goes on to be
That's
further
right.
processed by human hands.
Exactly.
With care and attention, as opposed to just whack through a machine. That means, you know,
picked up off the shelf.
if intention has anything to do with the way that we enjoy food and the impact
well, it does,
has.
and this is the whole idea of nourishment.
Yeah.
Because food is supposed to be nourishment, but it's not just about the nutritional value of the food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about nourishing. You know, it sounds a bit new agey, but nourishing your soul, nourishing your body, just nourishing.
Yeah.
And with that nourishing comes love.
Yeah.
And if you think about, you know, there's that lovely adage, you know, that your grandmother's made an apple pie, and you've walked into the house and you can smell this apple pie, and you can either sit down and embrace this apple pie, taste it, eat it. The apples have come from her back garden. She's made the pastry herself, and it's wonderful. And it just gives you that lovely feeling to hold on to. And one day when your grandmother's passed away, you can really just remember that, and it's really valuable to you. Or you can walk in and have a meltdown because there's carbohydrates and there's, you know, flour and carbs and whatever else, and you can choose. Yeah.
That to me is what you've just explained. There is a much better description of balance.
Yeah.
Than saying, oh, you need a bit of carbs and a bit of this and a bit of that. Yeah. It's more. It's the context again, isn't it?
It's completely.
That's a healthy context.
Yes.
And if it seems too new agey for people, then let's just remember that the placebo effect is the most effective drug available. So if that works, then the intention is enough to make it valuable.
It's quite funny coming from Caribbean background. My late father, he obviously I've grown up being very interested in nutrition and always talked about these things at home, and he'd listen and nod and then go off and eat whatever he was going to go off and eat. And he would always say, well, you know, I grew up in a place where food was scarce. Yeah. And actually we were just grateful to have a meal. Yeah. And we ate and we were strong and we worked physically and we had a very balanced life. Yeah. You know, we'd get up early before the sun came up and we'd do something physical, you know, for ourselves. We'd walk on the beach or, you know, be active. We see this even now when I go back to the Caribbean, I see that. Yeah. You come home, you eat what's there. Yeah. You know, you don't make a big fuss. Yeah. And food isn't really central. Food is there and it's nourishment. But there's so much more. Yeah. It's about, you know, connections to people, about nature and more than just what I'm physically feeding myself. And that just leads me on to also remembering a book review that I heard recently on Radio 4. And they were talking about the fact that Jamie Oliver's 5 Ingredients is like the best-selling cookbook out there. And it's just overtaken all the clean eating books that were popular last year. And one of the commentators pointed out that actually the idea behind clean eating, it's very selfish. It's all about me and how I look and how I feel and, you know, just worrying about myself. Whereas Jamie Oliver in the other books, it's about nurturing and nourishing and making a family meal for friends and for family and being sociable. And I really like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, I really like that. I thought, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. You know, clean eating for one, or should we just make a really good healthy meal for everybody? Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me that just summarises, going full circle back to where we started. That's what health is about.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. It's an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Wow. Well, that's great. Thank you so much. Did we cover all the diets? Probably not. There's
probably
more,
not. We can do more.
We can do more another time, can't we?
We can chat again.
But thank you so much, Alice. That's really valuable. And I love bringing this. It's a fresh context, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a different way of looking at things because we're not passing any judgment on any particular approach that anyone might take. Everybody's different. And good for you for taking some responsibility for yourself and making an effort. Yeah. Trying things out.
That's it. And finding what works for you.